Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, lot to get into, lot to discuss about boxing, the fights that happened. We'll also touch on Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic in this video because I do occasionally chuck a little bit of MMA in there. I'll start with Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic. I know some people will be like, gee, you do MMA? Very casually, but Jon Jones has always been a fighter in MMA who I've kept a close eye on. I remember his trilogy with DC. I remember the third fight very, very well. Stayed up for that fight. Obviously, it got overturned. Now, Jon Jones fighting Stipe. Now, Stipe had a good run of heavyweight. I remember he was chinned by DC, but he avenged that loss. I think he avenged it twice, actually. Went in there with Jones. Jones actually stopped him with, it was a knee to the body. Looked painful. The referee jumped in and stopped it. I said that Jon Jones would win by knockout. I thought that he'd chin Stipe, to be honest with you, because Stipe Miocic's chin is a little bit, and I thought that Jon Jones would probably have enough to chin him to the head. Ended up taking him out. That looked painful, and he was hitting him with some hard kicks. Was Jon Jones? Look, Jon Jones is an interesting one. He's a strange one for me because I like Jon Jones, the fighter. I like him. I think that as an all-rounder, and he only has one loss in MMA, which is very rare, and that's a DQ loss. So in reality, a lot of people would look at those DQ losses and say, well, officially it is a loss, yes, but it's not in theory really that. So it's only Khabib I think Khabib is the only kind of major fighter I know in MMA who's gone his career undefeated. And Jon Jones, if you take the DQ loss out of the equation, is another one. Having said that, Jones, as much as I'd love to see Jon Jones fight Tom Aspinall, he ain't going to do it. He ain't going to do it. Jon Jones, light heavyweight was fantastic. Heavyweight, yeah, he's doing all right. But look, Aspinall is a different beast altogether. Jon Jones knows that. We'll probably get another year plus hiatus, or he'll announce the fight and something will happen because you can't trust Jon Jones. You just don't know what he's going to do. He's not, I don't want to say he's as devious as Tyson Fury in that regard, but, failed tests, you hear some of the issues with Jon Jones. I wouldn't be shocked if, I don't want to say this may be his last time going into the octagon, but I don't know. I wouldn't be holding my breath that we're actually going to get him versus Aspinall. I hope to God I'm proven wrong on that, because Jones versus Aspinall is just, Dana White, if you could have done that for UFC 300, why didn't you? I know obviously it's not as straightforward as that, but honestly, Jones, Aspinall, I'd love it, and I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't know. I don't think so. In terms of, because I know some people are going to be like, oh my God, he's talking MMA. Listen, I do like MMA, I don't always talk about it, but I do occasionally, and when it comes to people like Jon Jones, people like that, I always have a little chat about that. But let's get on to boxing. Let's talk about the cards that happened in the order in which they happened. Obviously, we're going to start with the Netflix Mike Tyson VIP promotions card that happened on Friday night. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Before we talk about the main event, let's talk about Mario Barros versus Abel Ramoso. Barros looked terrible in there, and I've always looked at Barros and thought, okay, you're a world champion, but I remember him when he was fighting Tank. I remember him when he was fighting Keith Thurman. I mean, he lost to Keith Thurman how many years ago was it now? 2 and a bit years ago. Maybe 3 years ago now. And Thurman hasn't fought since then. Keith Thurman, after 2017, when he beat Danny Garcia, he pretty much checked out at that point. Fought Josecito Lopez, lost to Manny Pacquiao, and then actually that's his last 3 fights there. Josecito Lopez, lost to Manny Pacquiao, and then beat Mario Barros. Mario Barros losing to Keith Thurman, being stopped by Tank Davis in 11 rounds. Listen, I don't think he's going to do much at welterweight. Maybe that's why Conor Benn wants to fight him so bad. He is welterweight is such a strange division. I've said this about the division before. It seems to me as though it was always just a conveyor belt of just good fighter after good fighter after good fighter, multiple good fighters at any given time. Now it's just, I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened. I've never seen the welterweight division, or certainly that I can remember, in a long time being this thin on the ground. I mean, if Boots Ennis moves up, which it's seemingly likely he's going to fight Ortiz next, in which case that would be at 154 pounds. It's anybody's game. You would actually look at 140 and think, get Garcia, get Haney, maybe not Teofimo because I think he'd struggle a bit, but you're kind of Josh Taylor. You look at those guys and think, get the hell into this division and liven it up a bit, because on the ground it's as thin as a what. It's not good. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. Yeah, I did watch this fight. It was a decent scrap, I have to say. I did enjoy what I seen. It's not listed. The WBA isn't listed, of course it's not, but this is BoxRec. I had to look there and remember that, of course, they don't list the WBA. Yeah, look, there's a lot of people screaming robbery, and I have to say the commentary team, I don't mind Mauro Ranallo. I think they say his name, Mamma Mia. I don't mind him. Quite like him, actually. I like that. Mamma Mia. He's very enthusiastic. I quite like him. Roy Jones is a great commentator. Yes. That was it. Is it Rosa Perez? I didn't even know who she was. I remember listening to her like, who the hell is this girl? Never heard of her before. They were very pro Amanda Serrano. And that definitely, you see people, constantly robbery. It's not a robbery, in my opinion, right? It was close, it was nip and tuck, it was competitive. I thought Serrano just nicked it, personally. But by one point, I don't necessarily begrudge Katie Taylor the decision. It was competitive, right? It was a good watch, enjoyed it, competitive. What I will say about Katie Taylor, one, the point deduction. I mean, ref, why did it take you so long? Katie Taylor, if you can't win fair, and what I mean by winning fair is, listen, there are fighters who are reckless with their head. They definitely are. People like Andre Ward, they can be very reckless when they're coming in with their head. Yes, there comes a point where you're like, that's not reckless, that's intentional. And that's in concurrent fights now. Katie Taylor's been reckless with her head. Now, I think they were intentional headbutts. And the cut Amanda Serrano sustained was horrific, and she even said it herself. In all of her fights, she's only ever been cut twice, and each time it's been against Katie Taylor. So look, if Katie Taylor can't win fair, then it's time to retire. Simple as. That's what I gotta say on that one. It was a good fight. Will they do it again? Let's wait and see. Look, I was entertained by it at the end of the day, and I don't normally cover women's boxing because at the end of the day I don't find it particularly entertaining. It's like someone would say, oh, why don't you watch Sky Nicholson? Because she's not entertaining. I don't care how pretty she is. I'm not that enamored by her that I'm just going to be like, well, she's pretty, so I'll watch her. No, she's not entertaining, so why the hell am I going to watch her? I want to be entertained. I was entertained by these two. So if they do it again, if they do a trilogy, I'll watch it. It was good. If it was as good as this, I'll definitely watch it again. Didn't see any of the other fights apart from the main event. Now, look, I've already talked this to death. I'm not going to go on too deep about this. Jake Paul defeated Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson laughing his way to the bank with 20 mil. The fight was a farce. Mike Tyson clearly, obviously he revealed the health issues he had back in June, which were quite severe, which I'll talk about now in a wee bit, but it was a farce. Mike Tyson, easiest 20 mil he's ever going to make, and he talked about maybe, is that the end, maybe doing something again. I'll talk about that again, maybe in a separate video, but if he does do something again, Mike Tyson, one, he's not going to get the same amount of money. He'll still get good money, but I wouldn't particularly like to see him in there with anybody decent or anybody say young. What I would kind of not really be too dead set against, to be honest, would be a fight between him and Jon Fury. And I'll do a separate video on why I'd like to see that, why I think that could be intriguing. I mean, it kind of, one's 59, one's 58. They're both seen better days. One of them talks a very good game, but never backs it up. One of them, he's been sold to the public at 58 as, still good. So I think that would actually do well. Jon Fury would sell the living hell out of it if anyone could find where he's gone to, because he's gone quiet the last couple of months. But I think that's probably the only fight I'd be interested in seeing. And of course, I don't want 10-ounce gloves, 10, 12-minute or 12-minute, 3-minute rounds. Do something like that. Do an 8-rounder, 2 minutes or something like that, 14, 16-ounce gloves. Why not? Just Jon Fury, I know with that Mickey Teo situation, he talked up a good game, and, well, we know what happened there. So I'll talk more about that now in a wee bit. Let's get to the Latino night, which was in Saudi Arabia. Sad to see the venue so devoid of life. There was a lot of empty seats there, which was sad because this was a really, really, really good event. Oscar Collazo versus, that's his name, but I know that's not what he's called. Knockout CP Freshmark is what they were calling him. So CP Freshmark, longest reigning champion in boxing up until last night. Oscar Collazo, great performance, really, really impressed me. I don't cover the lower weights that much, and this was at 105 pounds, so it's the lightest weight, minimum weight in boxing. You very seldom see it on any mainstream platform. 105 pounds. 108 pounds is few and far between, but 105 pounds is almost unheard of to see a mainstream fight, to see that fight, one of them fights in mainstream. So certainly in this part of the world, in Japan, not so much. Good performance by Oscar Collazo, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good performance. Jose Ramirez, Barbosa Jr., stinker. It was a stinker. Barbosa Jr. needs to rematch Sean McComb, simple as, and that's all I'll say to that. And that's all I'll keep saying, rematch him because you got your ass kicked. It's as simple as that. One of the fights of the night, it's hard to pick between the main event and this fight, was, and I watched this one live, William Zepeda, Tevin Farmer. Oh, good Lord. The amount of red flags for William Zepeda in that fight. Now, the scoring, it's what you like, really. Tevin Farmer certainly landed the more clean, effective punches and he scored a knockdown. Zepeda, just did what he always did. Now, in the first round, it was obvious in the first round Zepeda was going to have a hard time because his punch output, certainly early in a fight, it's up in the hundreds. Like, you can easily throw 100 punches in a round for the first couple of rounds. I don't even think he averaged 50 in the first round. So his punch output was dropped dramatically by Tevin Farmer's movement, long-range boxing, and he was more physical than you're used to seeing with William Zepeda. Worrying thing for William Zepeda, it's not just that he was dropped. He was hurt a couple of times in there. Tevin Farmer is a non-puncher. Most of his knockouts have come at very low level, at kind of world level. I remember he knocked James Tennyson out with a body shot a couple of years ago now, but James Tennyson was never really a world level operator. He was always a bit vulnerable. He's not a noted puncher. It wasn't just the fact that he dropped Zepeda. He hurt him several times. Go and have a look at the fight. He hurt him a few times. That's a big worry. And Tevin Farmer's always been a fighter where he's got good boxing ability, but I've never really rated him, mad highly. The one thing I will say, they're trying to do Zepeda versus Shakur Stevenson. Based off of that, I would make Shakur Stevenson firm favourite. The one thing I will say is that Shakur he'd never be near as aggressive as Tevin Farmer was. He'd never press the action. He'd never try and get close and get physical with William Zepeda. So that's the one thing. The shots that Zepeda was throwing, I never seen Tevin Farmer noticeably hurt in the fight, but I did see him when Zepeda was really opening up and landing big hard body shots. You could see Tevin Farmer was getting at times a little bit uncomfy in there. Split decision. I think all the judges had it by a point for each guy. So one had it for a point for Zepeda, one had a point for Farmer, and then the final judge a point for Zepeda. It was that type of fight, but if I had to pick a winner, I don't mind Zepeda getting it, but Farmer could feel a little bit hard done by in that one. It was a very good fight. It really was, but a lot of worries and a lot of red flags in there if you're a William Zepeda fan. An awful lot. Because, he looked shaky as hell in there. He really did. In terms of the main event, Ramirez versus CBS. I talked about it already, but I'll go over it very quickly again. Great performance from Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. I remember him when he fought Vlasov. Was a little bit, it was a performance, but in hindsight, the Maxim Vlasov win aged quite well because Vlasov had a very good career. He should have been world champion at 175 pounds against Joe Smith, didn't get the decision. Vlasov was a good fighter, and he fought him when he was about 22, 23 years old at 168 pounds. Beat him, beat Arthur Abraham, beat Jesse Hart twice at super middleweight. They were really his main defences, moved to light heavyweight. Didn't really do a great deal until he fought Bivol. Got outboxed by Dimitri Bivol. He's really come into it at cruiserweight. He doesn't look small for the weight by no stretch of the imagination. God, how this guy ever made 168 pounds, I'll never know. Because, you see fighters go from light heavy to cruiser. And it's, you're like, oh my God, you're tiny. This guy went from super middle to light heavy to cruiser. And he looks every bit as big. He looked just nearly as big as CBS. How he ever made 106, I'll never know. But he really beat up CBS in there. CBS has a poor defense. He's never tightened it up. And against someone as talented and as skilled as Zurdo, yeah, he was taken apart in there. Never noticeably, in bad trouble. But yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I'd say CBS is waking up sore as hell today. So he woke up this morning sore as hell. So great performance by Zurdo Ramirez. The question is now, what's next for him? Well, I would imagine that they'd be looking to... It's going to be an interesting one, because I'd imagine they're looking for Opetaya, but there's talk that Opetaya is going to go after the WBC title. So, look, a voluntary on a Riyadh show, I think he's earned that. I really do, because I've always looked at Zurdo and thought there's a very good fighter there. I know sometimes he doesn't look spectacular. There's a very good fighter underneath it all. Don't sleep on him. Do not sleep on him. And I think he's finally proven me right now. For those who care, Tommy Fury will face Darren Till on January 18th at the Manchester Arena in Manchester. Hey, now, Carl Froch and Jake Paul, they are going at it. Effing sore loser. Shut the F up. I've done more in 4 years than you've done in your whole life. First and last time I respond to your broke salty A. Let me know if you want to wash my cars. Carl Froch responded. That was to Carl Froch, by the way, because Carl Froch is not best pleased with Jake Paul and this whole affair. Listen up, Jakey boy. I'm 11 years retired, not done around the boxing for over a decade. I'm old, grey and out of shape, but I'd still give... Who doesn't love Carl Froch? I'd still give your missus the best night of her life. Bet she dreams about a real man. Let me know if you still want your cars washing. She can let me through the back door. P.S. I'd knock you out in 30 seconds. You are useless. These two guys not pulling no punches. Listen. Right. Jake Paul, what is he going to do next? That's a good question. Conor McGregor seems to be a name that's being, floated around. I'm not going to go into the issues he's having back in Dublin, but they are quite serious allegations, and he's been in court over them. And yeah, it's Conor McGregor in general. Conor McGregor is a scumbag. I'm not just talking about this, but in general, that's what he is. I remember the old guy he hit. A lot of things. Conor McGregor is a scumbag, but people still want to see him fight. Would he take a fight with Jake Paul? If he didn't have any of these things pending over him, maybe. But maybe Conor McGregor... See, Conor McGregor is probably living still off the back of that Floyd Mayweather performance, because people are like, he won a couple of rounds off Floyd Mayweather. It wouldn't damage Floyd Mayweather, but it would probably damage McGregor if he goes in there and gets blitzed by Jake Paul, because, listen... People made a big song and dance about McGregor, and I remember people saying it up to the McGregor-Mayweather fight, but Conor was offered boxing. Well, first and foremost, no one's offered boxing. It's not like they turn around and say, here's a contract to join Premier League boxing. It doesn't work like that. You either go and do it because you think you're good enough, or you don't. If McGregor was good enough, that's what he would have pursued, but he wasn't good enough. And as we can see, people say, well, he won an All-Ireland title. Listen, I've seen fighters who've had pro fights who look like they are complete novices. They look like they're fighting the most obscure journeymen, going life and death with them. They have the most basic technique, and you look at their amateur records and what do they have? They have an All-Ireland title at novice or intermediate level. It means nothing in Ireland. It's not like winning an ABU in the UK, where you have actual competition. That means nothing. It's only when you get to international level or really senior level in Ireland that you actually start to really see the competition. So McGregor, if he fought Jake Paul, I think he'd get sparked. And he's tiny. Like, McGregor fought Mayweather at 154 pounds. Jake Paul fought a heavyweight, so yeah, be giving up a lot of weight there. Jake Paul had a saying on Artur Beterbiev, just seen top 5 pound for pound fighters, the world calling me out. 4 years in and I run the sport. That's because Beterbiev offered Jake Paul a shot at his light heavyweight title. Beterbiev has murder on his mind. Clearly, if that's what he's thinking. Oh yes, now I'd done a video on this, but at the time I just knew it was announced. Apparently Dillian Whyte is, well, not apparently, he is. He's going to be fighting in Gibraltar on December the 15th against Ebenezer Tete. We'll see if he can do a better job than Daniel Dubois did 5 years ago when he knocked him out in a round. And Ebenezer Tete was looking for the canvas from the opening bell. But let's just gloss over that. Apparently this is going to be shown at the Zone. Okay, it's not too bad. Apparently the crowd who did the Castle Bar show, or the kind of event planners, are the ones doing this. So I guess that's who Dillian Whyte is working with now. Listen, Dillian Whyte fighting in Gibraltar, fighting in Castle Bar. Well, Castle Bar, fighting in Ireland, I can kind of understand that because it's not too far from the UK. Like, you know, you can get, I mean, there's certain parts of the UK you can get to Ireland quicker. I mean, if you're going to, put it like this, if I wanted to go to, say, Cornwall from London, which where I am, I mean, I could probably get to Dublin quicker than I could get to Cornwall. You know, 20 minutes to London City Airport, fly to Dublin in an hour, done. I don't know how long it'll take me to get to Cornwall. So, you know, it makes a bit more sense to fight in, like, Dublin or, well, not really Mayo, because that's a bit away, but you get what I mean. Gibraltar? Really? Against Tete. Now, as I said, if he struggles with Ebenezer Tete, and we will, if it's on the Zone, we'll get a chance to watch this fight, thank God. Let's see what Dillian Whyte has left in the tank. I suspect very little. Let's see. You know, I've long since said that if you're a promoter, listen, if I was Frank Warren, and I used to say this about Daniel Dubois, but I'm not going to say it now, as in Frank Warren should feed Dubois or feed Dubois or Dillian Whyte to Dubois. If I was Frank Warren, if Dillian Whyte, if you could do it, I would get Moses Talma in there like that with Dillian Whyte. I would, because Moses Talma would light Dillian Whyte up. From what I've seen lately, he would light him up. Light him up. What else do we have here? It's mainly, most of the news is mainly about the fallout from Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. That's what it mainly is. And I'd like to talk about a few other things other than that, but there's a lot of things about that fight. It was just, yeah, it was what that was. Apparently Mike Tyson in the run-up, he had major problems back in June, and I talked about it briefly in the video, but that does open up a whole other can of worms as to how he was ever licensed and sanctioned for this fight in the first place. The Texas Athletic Commission have a lot of questions to be answered to, because, like, how do you allow a 58-year-old man, one, to get licensed? How do you allow a man who basically admits to nearly dying, losing, you know, having to have 8 blood transfusions, losing something like half of his blood, and losing 25 pounds of weight? How do you, knowing all that, because you would imagine you'd need to know their health history and any recent health issues, how do you, knowing all that, allow this fight to go on? Answers on a postcard, please. Dave Benavidez will face Dave Morrell at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. This is going to be on February the 1st. It's going to be a good fight. I'm looking forward to that. I think both guys need each other now, because both guys, certainly Dave Morrell didn't look good last time out. He really didn't. On the undercard, excuse me, Brandon Figueroa versus Stephen Fulton rematch. Well, if Brandon Figueroa gets the Stephen Fulton who came out last time, he's going to win that rematch. Pitbull Cruz versus Angel Ferro, and Jesus Ramos versus Jason Rosario. So he's still knocking around. You know, he's only young, Jason Rosario, as well, but it seems like he's been around for years and years and years. Now, this is an interesting one. Okay, so basically, right, it's to do with Aja Kabayel. I'm going to try and find it. Yeah, Aja Kabayel has now pulled out of a purse bid for his IBF final eliminator with Martin Bakole. This was to determine the mandatory challenger for Dillian Whyte, for Daniel Dubois. Billy Nelson has revealed that Bakole Zhang will likely be ordered next. Now, if you're Aja Kabayel, and you've had 2 very good back-to-back wins, and they really have been very good back-to-back wins, why would you pull out of the purse bid so soon coming up to the bid date? It would have to mean that you've something better lined up. Is it a fight with Daniel Dubois? I mean, like, it could be, but Kabayel, from what I've seen, is a difficult night's work for any man. You know, I didn't think much of him personally. I remember seeing him against Chisora, thinking, he's very negative. There's not much there. Nah, he'll go to a certain level, maybe European, but that's it. Well, he's proven me very wrong. However, I will say that I thought well, no, he was injured, Frank Sanchez. And Frank Sanchez in that first round, before the injury really took effect, was winning that first round. So, and that win over Makhmedov, I mean, that's not necessarily aged the best. So, you could ask the question, how good really is Caballel? But he's done very well in his last two performances, certainly, even if one of the guys was clearly injured. You'd have to assume he'd have something better lined up. But then that is the question, is he going to go in there with Dubois? Where does that leave Joseph Parker? Because he's desperate for the fight. And if anyone's deserved or earned a title shot, it's Joseph Parker. So, it kind of leaves a lot of questions to be asked there. In terms of what they've done now, they've ordered a final eliminator between Martin Bakole and Zhang. I flippin' love that fight. That is the fight we wanted. That's a flippin' epic fight because Bakole, big punch output, heavy-handed like hell, against one of the biggest, if not the biggest puncher in the heavyweight division, but the worst stamina of any top-level heavyweight. Man, I'm all for it. I think that's going to be an epic fight if they do it. They have yet to announce it. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be interesting. I seen, who was it? Was it Chris Mannix interview? I think it was Chris Mannix anyway, interview, or maybe it was Ade. No, I think Ade was hosting. It was someone on the DAZN team was interviewing Chris Eubank Jr. And they asked him about, Conor Benn, this, that, and the other, and he said, expect word this week. Now, if it's going to be on a Riyadh show, we normally get like a full press conference of the full undercard. So I wonder if we're going to hear something about Dubois as well this week. Let's wait and see. To end this, Tyson Fury training in Malta. He's also uploaded some clips to his Instagram page of him training over there. And I'm not going to go on because I think this video was already probably gone way too long as it is. But my opinion is the guy looks heavy, and that could mean one of two things. One, it's strategic. He's looking to come in a little bit heavier because, he felt he was too light. The trainers like Dominic Ingle saying, oh, he undertrained. No, I think there's more of an argument that he overtrained, in which case you could understand them fatiguing a little bit because you leave it all in the gym. Fair enough. And how could you undertrain when you're the lightest you've been in 5 years? Makes no sense, right? That could be one thing. Second is that he is not looking in the best of shape because he isn't planning on going ahead with this fight. Now, we're nearly a month away. We'll be a month away on Thursday. And we're kind of in around that time when if a pullout is going to happen, it's going to kind of happen around about now. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. If the fight does go ahead, the wait for Tyson Fury is going to be very, very interesting. Hatman was saying in the Element group that, I forget exactly the words he used, but Fury, does he have the motivation to go through back-to-back tough camps? And my counter argument is, it's not that does he have the motivation, can his body physically go through back-to-back tough camps? He had a tough camp for the Wilder second fight, didn't have to worry because the next fight, didn't fight again for like a year and a half. Had a tough camp probably straight away after that for the Dillian Whyte fight, and then he probably didn't have another tough camp for 2 years. Because he fought Chisora, didn't need a tough camp for that. Clearly didn't train hard for Francis Ngannou. And then it took him, 6 months, 7 months of training for Usyk. Can he really physically, because I think his body, and people like Alan Babbage have said his body is riddled with injuries, can he go straight back into a tough camp? That's my question there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I think we are going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Until next time, people, I'll leave it there. Peace.